Hey, good morning, listeners, viewers. You're listening to Ammar
Allan.
and
And even Doc.
hey, wonderful. And each week we'll bring you some news, views, one or two clues from the business world. Asian Business Connections aims to connect, support, and promote the Asian and wider communities. And whether you have a business, want to talk business, or just want to open a business, and we will talk, not just shop, not just corner shops. We just talk. Anyway, good morning.
Actually, you mentioned corner shops last week when the Doc and I were together. We were discussing corner shops in the past, didn't we, Doc?
Yes, we were.
But obviously not as we discuss them today.
Well, things have changed. The corners have changed as well. And the corner shops have become bigger and bigger and bigger. And that brings me to the topic of how well a lot of immigrants have done, how the soil in this country is so fertile. If you work hard, you reach anywhere.
You know, I mean, we go off a tangent, you and I, with Ammar, but you're absolutely right. The corner shops are not the small locations where we used to get a penny mix-up and things like that now. They're like mini supermarkets, aren't they?
Yeah.
And with 24-hour license and some of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But they still remain in certain communities, the single source of contact and
Yes.
connection for
Absolutely.
a lot of certainly elder, isolated individuals and generations. And they probably remain a source of relative entertainment and antisocial behavior for younger generations, as they always have done.
But I suppose do we ever realize how integral they are to community cohesion? Is a good word, isn't it?
It is.
In the context that exactly what Ammar said there about, you know, I go to my local shop where I live. The guy he always recognises me. I don't go in a lot, and we always end up talking about Newcastle United. So I'm just a customer out of hundreds who probably go there. Yet the proprietor generally knows the conversation to have, if that makes sense, because they're just there all the time. Dare I say, a bit like a doctor's surgery.
I was going to say exactly the same. Whether it's the doctor's surgery or the hairdressers or the corner shop, they're meeting points, you know.
Well, the critical community hubs is what they are.
Absolutely.
I think there is, without a doubt, some reliance on the social aspect that is now being factored into doctors and general practitioners, right? Because historically, you would normally go to a doctor when you were unwell, you know, physically. Now, people are going to doctors if they're just for well-being.
Well, the health service is becoming a health service from being a sickness service. Health is a completely different concept from lack of illness. You know, it's like if you're not bankrupt, it doesn't mean you're rich. So health is a very positive concept. You have a lot of people with physical illness, but emotionally, socially, they're rich people. They're well known. They communicate. I remember one particular lady called Olive, and this was in 1979. I was in Freeman Hospital. She had horrible hands, gnarled like that, but she was making Christmas cards and donating the money to the ward. Now, that's what I see as positive health, despite all her so-called disabilities. So health is such a positive concept, you know. And I think we should encourage that and encourage more and more looking after yourself, better eating, exercising, sleeping well, and so on, than just waiting to be ill and then go to the doctors.
There's another side of that, Doc. What you've taught me, you've always said, because you can be critical of the health service, that it treats the symptoms, not the causes.
Yeah.
You're very much firefighting in the health service.
Yes.
Some of the things you just said there about eating, good habits, etc., etc. But when you generally go to your doctor, or dare I say horribly, the hospital, when something's gone wrong, and it is about treating the symptoms because that's the quick fix you want, as opposed to going back to the beginning, which you've taught me that.
Well, but also political correctness in the medical fields is just a cover-up for not talking about the real issue. If someone is grossly obese and you talk about everything except their weight, I mean, you don't mention weight, whether they have a cough or a cold. But if they got knee problem or if they got ankle arthritis, weight is critical to lose, And I think doctors just have to get over this politeness and kindness as, look, with this weight, you will suffer that. I've always practiced like that. Nobody left my list because I told them the truth, And especially in Geordie land, people are used to talking straight.
And I suppose, I don't know whether this is true or not. I've heard somebody suggest that every now and then you mentioned to some of your more, can we say, larger patients, do you have any mirrors in your house? Is that anything you actually said or not? Or is that just one of those rumors?
When you get to know your patients well, like people, they're not patients, they're human beings who live around you. You can say anything and get away with it. Anything. The other day I was sitting in the pub and this older lady, older than me as well, came and said, do you remember what she said to me? I said, not quite. She said, you asked me to eat horse manure. I said, what do you mean? I couldn't have told you. Well, you implied that. You said that we need bugs in our tummy and you put it in a very colorful way. And today I remember it 20 years later. So, GPs are your family friends, they're not just doctors. Medicine is the excuse. You get to know the people. At least that's how I practiced. I mean, Allan, do you remember 1983, I joined the list and I've known you since 1983, February.
Yes. Actually,
you joined what? Say that again.
Allan was among my first few patients I got to know. And he had two cute little kids. They've grown into huge people now. But they were so cute. And it was a nice family, And Allan still is I still can't believe that he was a DSP, a superintendent of police. He's so amenable and so friendly. I often ask him, how did you manage? But I used to say that then as well when he was a mere policeman.
Yeah. Well, look, if we're telling tales here, the other one, when we're talking about the doctor being part of the community, and Winston's just shouting, so I'll slow him down. Do you remember at your 75th birthday party? You've been retired about 10 years.
Yes.
We were in the Bullman Club at Gosforth, and there's three mature ladies sitting, and they went across and they said to the doctor, said, are you Dr. Anand? And he said, yes. And the woman said, I used to be your patient, she says, but I don't need the pill anymore. But it's a little anecdote that the doc and I share, and I don't think you've heard it, Ammar, but it actually supports what Doc's saying about these smaller locations being community hubs.
Yes.
How sometimes people don't get to meet people. So the corner shop, the doctors, the hairdresser is some ways how people communicate and actually bring value to their lives, which maybe the individuals who own the shops don't realize.
Mm.
And you're right, without question. Excuse me. And sadly, Jack is also. I need to go and see the doc and get a pill or whatever it is. But sadly, Jaff could not be here. He went to Abu Dhabi last week and got the flu. And I thought, why would you go there? You can get it here.
Absolutely. Well, you look a lot better than you did at the ABC Awards, Ammar.
And thank you for that. I must admit, I'm still not 100%. Interestingly and curiously, the fatigue and the chest still is plaguing me somewhat. Have started a course of antibiotics earlier this week, and it's probably killed some germs somewhere. Probably, possibly not necessarily the ones that I was hoping for, but I am here. But yeah,
if we go back to the awards night, and in fairness, my good lady wife, who Pat, was concerned about you. She said he's not as good as he's ever looked. He's really done well to get here, and she was so concerned and upset that you looked bad that she sent me to the bar for a double vodka as opposed to a vodka to calm her nerves.
Well, that's interesting. Obviously for her. I was grateful for your Dr. Pat's support. I did, in fact, go and see a doctor who, because interestingly, Louise had been given some antibiotics on Friday to start on the Sunday if she hadn't got any better, and she hadn't. And then I went in on Monday and prescribed them as well. Well, actually, what I said was, if my wife's got them, I want some as well, right?
Yeah.
How does that work? But recognizing the fact that there is a real case of antimicrobial resistance, which is a huge issue for the NHS. Doc, would you care to share
Yes,
some
well,
detail?
yeah, well, right from when I started medicine as a GP in 1983, I've been encouraging people, say, if you got the flu, just rest. Don't come to me. I might give you an antibiotic, which will kill off all the good germs in your tummy. And that gave me a chance to talk about probiotics. I'm talking about 1983, you know. This is 29 years ago. And I used to tell them, I said, look, you can take echinacea, the herbal thing that bucks up your immune system. And the same here, you know. In my 44 years, I've probably taken antibiotics 5 or 6 times, twice from the dentist. Often they prescribe and I don't bother getting it. I mean, if I can afford to just lie in bed and get better, I do that. I just avoid. I mean, you know, it is better to let your body fight than take and create more and more resistant germs. You know, it's a 24-hour society we live in. I mean, if you're working, you can't have the same luxury as I do, you know, that I just take time out. But if you rest, if you eat well, if you are mentally relaxed, your body fights infection, you know. There's just no question, you know. But you want to get better quicker. Doesn't matter my lifestyle. I don't sleep. I get angry. I drink too much. I eat too much. Zero exercise. But I must be well. How can you be, you know? You have to look after the car. It's a bit like a car, you know. You service it, look after it. So I avoid antibiotics as much as I can, possibly. And I don't have a bottle with amoxicillin. Many people from the subcontinent in particular, they keep a little bit of the antibiotic, 3-4 days worth, that the next time they can start straight away. But then that causes resistant germs as well. That's so common in the community that I belong to, the Asian community.
There's a little link here, Doc, that we didn't think about, but
go on then.
Let's move just back to the ABC Awards, and as Ammar knows, the person who got the Lifetime Achievement Award was Bahal Singh.
Let's just talk a little bit about him.
Yes.
Because we didn't get the chance to do so.
Yeah, well, I mean, can I start, Ammar?
Please.
Yeah, well, I've known Ammar. Okay, we keep saying my previous life being the area commander for Gateshead. So I was across there in 2000 onwards. So I've known Bahal over 20 odd years. And, you know, you can say as a police officer, you do things because it's part of the role. But I'm still now 15 years on, still speaking to Bahal. He still rings me when he wants advice and all the rest of it. And I do consider him a friend. But he used words of inclusivity and community cohesion before any politician was using them. And he actually walked the walk.
Why did he do that?
I think some things are just inherent and inbuilt in you, aren't you? A, he's a very nice person. B, he had an interesting life start in India and then had the background where he moved from India because I'm led to believe he was a little bit on Gandhi's side about the anti-British aspect of India. Moved to Uganda. He spent a little bit of time in prison in India, moved to Uganda, and then with Idi Amin coming through, was one of the Ugandan Asians who moved to this country 50 years ago, and then grew a little bit, as we've talked about, community shops aspects, and he formed and was a key player in what they call the Gateshead Ethnic Minority Support Group. And Bahal is Sikh, but it doesn't matter what religion, what colour, what sex, creed, belonging. If you needed help, you knew to go there, and he would try his damnedest to get you help. And that he's just devoted his life to doing those things. And still now, and the link I was going to make was the doc talking about probiotic and all the rest of it, because we went there to see him, as you know, before we had the award ceremony, to see if we could get a little clip of him. And what was the thing he gave you, Doc? He gave you one of his life-saving drinks, wasn't it? which is a
Protein.
little.
Protein thing. But I'll add to what you're saying. You're putting it extremely mildly. He would have been killed if he stayed in Uganda. So he knows what discrimination is. You're putting it very
Why?
simply
Why
and
would he have
lightly.
been killed?
Well, because he wasn't black.
Oh, right.
When Idi Amin got rid of the Asians, because the Asians went through the Brits to build railway lines and so on. They worked hard. The Brits left, but the Asians, Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, they all did very well. They lived in great harmony. And because they were educated, they just took over. Whereas the black people were not educated. And Idi Amin minded that. And he said, I'm giving you a month's notice or a week's notice. Get out or I'll kill you and I'll take over everything. So they had to leave in a rush, All Hari Shuklas and all these characters who come from these countries haven't come. The first immigration was from Gujarat, Punjab, into Kenya, Tanganyika, and all those places, right? And they worked under the Brits. They were paid. They had reasonable life, and they wanted to go. But after that, when the local blacks, particularly Uganda, was very nasty, they said, if you don't leave in a month and leave all your property here, I'll just kill you. End of story. So they all left in a rush and came to Leicester, mainly, and elsewhere. So they've suffered very massive racism. And equally, they've survived together, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, and everyone, quite comfortably for generations there.
Doc, when you're talking, and I sit between the two of you age-wise, but I can only remember as a young person, lots of aeroplanes with Asian people getting off as a result of what Idi Amin did in relation. And I can never remember anybody in this country worrying about immigration in relation to, it was always what I still think the country is now, very supportive of people who needed help. So when we get into this horrible word of racism and everybody being taught about race, and I don't doubt there's some, but in the vast majority of people, and I go back to Bahal, inclusion and community cohesion.
Yes. So when he came here, he started the gate said visible ethnic minority. It means we are visible. Don't just hide, And he triggered off the Gem Arts. He triggered off the Muslim Association. So he really started something good, which then flowered into other association in Gateshead, who are still flowering and doing well. I mean, Gem Arts.
This was quite some time ago.
Yeah. Gem Arts is about 15 years old, but he started 20, 25 years ago.
And I always remember in Gateshead, Ammar, you would understand Eid better than any of us. But at the end of Eid, he always had a multicultural celebration.
Yeah.
Or the community. It didn't matter what the religious connotation or respect was. Sikh being Bahal, we would always go for an end of Eid function, as well as Diwali and Vaisakhi.
Yeah. And that culture remains in Gateshead more than in Newcastle because of him. Yeah. So he has set a trend.
And I suppose the conclusion of that story is, Ammar, I know that his family and his good friends were honoured to be awarded a lifetime award by ABC.
So I think he was really deserving, and I'm glad he was honoured. And
I think it's wonderful that
And I suppose we made play of the fact that in January he's 100, but we believe he's 104.
Yes, because in his time, when you were born in Punjab, the English chap who kept the numbers would come once a month, once a year, and give everyone a date of birth, whatever age they were.
And actually, my mum's birthday was the 1st of the 1st, 1940. She wasn't born then.
But a lot of Jewish people who came to Liverpool,
she wasn't born then at all.
Yeah, but same with Jewish people, they came with their very long names, old biblical names, Hebrew names, and they were called anglicized, like, Kopilovich became Koplovitz. The next generation, they'll become Kop. And they were all given 1st of January. So the poor treasury has to dish out a lot of money on a particular date because they weren't spread out through the year. They all came 1st of January, 1st of January,
This just shows different systems, doesn't it? Because you can probably see Winston's now sitting on my knee, but his birth certificate was correct to his date of birth, 2/7/19, and he was born on.
Thank you for that phenomenal birth date. Thank you. No, but in India and Pakistan, there was nothing called a birth certificate. Do you know why? Everybody knew who the father was. Everybody knew who the mother was. Why do you need a piece of paper? And that's absolutely true. People still in villages, now that the system has come through, the computers are there and so on. But at that time, everybody came to the wedding, everybody came to, so it was a social thing, it wasn't kind of a, and also people didn't emigrate so much. People didn't go to another village so much. Everything was in the village. So it didn't need documentation as a general principle. But now for anything, you need a piece of paper.
Yeah. And if I get the time, I'll show you Winston's.
Okay.
So it's, yeah, scary, but it's wonderful, as you say, that we recognise Bahal and a series of others. So sadly, I couldn't be there for the duration, could I? So Doc, Allan, you'd kindly helped coordinate, facilitate, make the magic happen. So thank you both publicly, as also as previous award winners as well. So how did it feel the previous year, just to set the scene for our viewers and listeners?
Allan, how did it feel? Allan,
How did it feel?
Well, I think it's fair, Ammar, we've been together a lot of years now. So not only did you honour me with your Chairman's Award, I'm sure you quite enjoyed setting me up, because I never had a clue that A, there was such a thing as a Chairman's Award, and B, that you were going to honour myself in that way. And I remember the conversations beforehand. I was saying, well, I'll be there. We'll get a taxi for 11. He said, oh, don't go too early, because we need to have a drink together and we need to make this sure this is that and all the rest of it. And I have to say, if it was like You've Been Framed with Jeremy Beadle, or, some of the sort of things that go on, maybe Ant and Dec now, where they're set up, the people they deal with, and they haven't got a clue what was happening. I hadn't got a clue what you were going to do. As you put me centre stage on the stage in front of 150 people, and then say nice things about me, and in the nicest possible way. And the Doc's the same, believe it or not. We're not good at people talking about us too well. We just sort of hopefully fade into the background and help where we can.
Well, the last year was slightly different for me, because I was called on the stage by the mayor, etc. But this year, I felt like you a bit, Ammar. I felt, let's sit back and enjoy the show. We've done a bit of work. I just put my camera on and sat, and thank you for letting me have a table to myself next to Sir John Hall's table. I felt like a king, He's the president, I'm the prime minister. Honestly, I must thank you publicly of how honored I was. And much bigger people sitting at table complaining, why have they put me behind Doc? Why have they? And I enjoyed that, that little
Good.
I'm sorry for interrupting there, Doc, but I've had a couple of calls from Sir John, and since he spent the whole night with you, he's having trouble sleeping. It's something to do with nightmares.
I think he called them daymares.
As well.
Yeah.
No, but he was laughing, he knows me. So he said, come here. What are you up to? I said, I'm the conservative candidate. He said, well, pretenders, as if it was some lurgy being a conservative. He jokes, as you know, Ammar, he laughs and jokes. He doesn't take himself too seriously.
No,
he keeps it light and happy and ticking over. And he enjoyed giving the award and receiving the award, No,
it was wonderful. It was wonderful. And he was there, because he did ring the following day and sort of said, I really apologize, Ammar, because I didn't get the chance to thank you for my award. I wasn't expecting it at all, and it was just a huge shock.
Okay, a pleasant one.
Maybe for next year. I mean, we were discussing earlier, Doc, or when Ammar gets fit again, that we need to
He is fit again, 99%.
Well, he's fitish. But when we're all back and have a moment, as always, debrief what went on to how we make this next year's better than last year's.
Yes.
And all that sort of thing. But I'm just, as we're talking here, maybe we need a new award, the way you operate, Ammar, the You've Been Framed Award, seeing Sir John Hall felt the same as I did.
Maybe.
You've
Been Framed Award, yes, okay.
Yeah, well, look, you can see he's smiling. He's thinking about it.
Yeah. But no, I think, look, at the end of the day, it's great. So part of the experience, let's say, is the best experiences are those surprises, right? or the
Yeah.
ones where you're not expecting anything, and all of a sudden you get given something and you go, "Oh my God, I can't believe it!" As opposed to being shortlisted or as a
Yeah.
finalist, because the thing with being part of a shortlist and being a finalist is that you know that you're either going to win or you're going to lose, and no one, sadly, whilst it's a huge deal, it is a huge deal, but everyone has that expectation or anticipation of
Yes.
winning, right?
It's a bit like a
And when
gamble,
you
isn't it?
don't,
It's like
well,
going to
when you
gambling.
don't,
Mm.
and when you don't, you are naturally disappointed, and understandably so, right? It's just life. It's just
Yeah.
that's the way it is. You don't participate in a race to come last, do you? Or to not win. You participate in a competition or something on the hope and in the vein that you're going to win it, and that's just a matter of fact. So I think rather than a you being framed type of thing, I think it's wonderful, right? It's like I was slightly upset in that this year, the citations that were there, I didn't get the chance to read them out for the likes of Sir John. People have gone, "Oh, there's Sir John. I've heard of him. I think he had something to do with Newcastle United."
Yeah.
Do very many people know or aware of the fact that he built the Metro Centre, that he was involved in so many huge initiatives. He helped establish the Tyne and Wear Development Corporation, and all of these type of things that existed. Well, the simple answer is no. They do not and did not, and consequently, um, the challenge remains that we need to take whatever advantage of sharing great people like your good self, Alan, Doc. How did it feel for you, Doc?
As I was saying, I was totally relaxed because, we had done some work, Alan and I, with you and with the team, much earlier, getting the website. So that sense, and I felt very good that somebody else is running the show and we're just sitting on and enjoying it. It's
no,
a bit like
sorry, not this year. I'm not talking about this year. I was talking about the award, the winning of the award.
I think that they were good. I think people enjoyed them. Everyone went up with a, really, is it me? Every one of them, whether it was Iram Ali or Yavar Hussain, they didn't know. Yavar phoned me and said, "Yar, they've called me." I said, "Okay." He thought I'd tell him as if I know he's winning the award. And they almost expect, because I'm close to you, I should tell him, "You got the award." I said, "I don't know." And he really was genuinely surprised that he's got an award,
Yeah.
And that's how it should be, Iram the same. Iram didn't know she was getting an award. She just came there.
Sorry, I was just going to add a little contradiction, Ammar. I don't contradict you very often. In the context where you say you're in a race and you're there to win, I think something that's special about ABC is, to start with, you're a winner if you're nominated. And the people I spoke to who are nominated, I think the winning then becomes the bonus. The first step where ABC kicks in is the recognition of the work done in the community. And that's just where I'm not sure the analysis between a race as opposed to what you and others on behalf of ABC have done for the community.
So you're saying the nomination is the winning and the other is just the icing on the cake?
Yeah, I do think that. I mean, both you and I, Doc, have spoken to people.
I agree.
People, the people who are there under the nominee banner were actually proud to be there under the nominee banner.
Yes.
And then the icing on the cake. Yes. And I think that's something that's been permutated and moved on from year to year.
Yes, I think it's a brand you have established in Ammar, that in the community, I mean, there are other people who do a lot of good work and are never recognized or over-recognized, whatever. But here you've got a kind of a hub where the great and the wonderful, it doesn't matter who they are recognized, and in a more or less transparent way, they're judged, and more or less transparent way. Nothing's perfect, but it's pretty damn good, There's no kitchen cabinet saying, "Oh, he's my friend, let's give him an award." Nothing like that. And it's the award winners who again choose. And this year I wasn't among the choosers. It doesn't bother me. Somebody else is choosing. because I know it's transparent. It isn't Auntie G of somebody or Uncle G of that one. Nothing like that, you know.
Only one little problem, Doc, and I know you wouldn't ordinarily do this unless you're being very super clever. Are you putting you and I in the great and the good category? Or just the fact
I don't know
we
about
happen
you.
to be around?
I don't know about Alan Curry, but I'm in the great and good category.
I
And
hope
Winston.
so. Yeah, absolutely. You guys are. I mean, publicly, just genuinely talking about the support that you've offered both me and ABC, and as a consequence, um, um, as a consequence, the the impact that you've had on the broader, wider community is significant. So thank you for that. You unreservedly and selflessly support ABC's endeavour. It's a huge celebration. It takes a lot of effort, and I think it's wonderful.
And I think the glory to you is, despite you being ill, it still went on. And they say a good businessman is one who doesn't need to be on the premises all the time. And the show went on despite your 99% absence. Without your voice, without your personal comments, without your physical presence, the show just went on. And I think that's good to you, really, to Ammar Mirza.
I was going to say, bear in mind the title of this show is Show Business. And you mentioned beginning how you manage businesses, Ammar. The link there is, and I always say, and I think I've said it to both of you, if the number 33 bus syndrome. And what that means for me is that if you invest everything in one individual, and then the number 33 bus comes along and wipes them out, the organization can't survive.
Yes.
So going back to what Ammar does in his day job, and I know you teach it about resilience in business. Is that a link, Ammar, to mention that?
I think so. I think it's the key thing that we're trying to do. So people regularly ask me, right, what's my why? Like, what's my why? And why did we, Alan, why did we set up ABC? Well, we set up ABC, if you remember, in the great old good days of the 125 steps. I'm sure there's a movie about it. There's another spy novel.
Which done me back in.
70-something steps, or what was it? The movie. Anyway, we'd come together, group of us, to sort of recognise that there wasn't a representative body that represented everybody, right? And I don't just mean that from an ethnic or an Asian perspective, although it is called Asian Business Connections. It is about prioritizing and supporting Asian community, but it's always been an inclusive organization. And the backdrop to it was I had been quite fortunate in representing the private sector, had devoted quite a bit of time and effort to social activities. So whether that was being a governor of a primary school or representing the private sector on Newcastle Council and all of those type of things, and realised that a lot of the support on offer wasn't reaching the ethnic communities, and the ethnic communities weren't accessing or aware of the support that was on offer, and there was a lot of inequalities. There wasn't a lot of discrimination in the true discrimination sense, but there was sort of lack of equity and equality. And anyway, the point of all of this is that we then decided to try and do something about it. And because of the very suspicious nature, generally, of everybody, but primarily in the Asian community, why is anybody giving away their time? Why is anybody trying to help other people? We purposefully decided to set this up as a not-for-profit social enterprise, and in doing so created the first of its kind organization in the UK. And all of a sudden we've seen so many other organizations set up across the country. I mean, social enterprises and not-for-profits were really unheard of from a more generic perspective. Community groups were then from 2008, 2009, around about 2011, were encouraged community groups were then encouraged to set up as not-for-profit social enterprises to access funding and various other things. But we had set this up more from an altruistic, philanthropic purpose that would enable us to grow from. And the why behind everything that we've ever done, and I use the royal we, i.e. you, Doc, Allan, everybody else that's involved, is because we want to see people do well, and we want to see people do better, and we do so, sort of selflessly, with the ambition of supporting them through experience and expertise. So we bring this band of merry people, not just men, together, and in doing so, and animals, and we do so with the rigor, the vigor, and the grit that represents the North and the Northeast, right? And then we're just really passionate, positive people is what we are, and consequently we started looking at, well, what are the real issues that are affecting communities and society? So things like licensing, we talked about corner shops, huge challenge from a regulation, legislation perspective. It is incredible the level of bureaucracy and the level of red tape that exists that prohibits people just to sort of live and operate within small businesses. If you're a big business, you've got the resource, you've got the capacity to deal with whatever. You can pay for solicitors, you can pay for all of that. If you're a small person or a micro or a sole trader, it's a real struggle and a juggle, right? So looking to help support people in that sense. Then developing things like 2-week well-being and business boot camps. Doc, can you remember going down to the college and delivering them and things like that, right? So that was good.
The pie project on a cold, wintry day, it's freezing cold, and you've taken a very poorly done shop, and it's the entrepreneurial skill. Which can I flag something up? Tomorrow we are doing a jobs fair in Gosford. It's a lot of hard work putting people together. And yes, people will recognize me. But if you can bring the employer and the employee together, what better joy can there be, What better? Even if one person gets a job tomorrow, it's been worth the 3 months of work, That's how I feel, And I think the joy is not always financial or power. It's just the joy of watching people.
The satisfaction.
Yes.
The reward of that self-worth, right?
Yes.
I have put some effort into something, and I am getting a return from it.
Yes.
And going back to the awards, you're absolutely right. It's wonderful to see so many people, being shortlisted as finalists, and then go on to win the awards. And it's that sort of peer recognition, which is incredibly worthwhile, right, Doc? As in the recognition of peers in that room, and the Sir John Halls and the Allans and the Docs, and Doc's got a better table than me. Wonderful.
Coming to that point. Alan and I discuss this a lot. We meet every week about my politics, etc. We say, if other things are not quite what you want, let it be, You don't have to judge everything on the planet, I could have done that better. Of course, you're the best person on the planet. It doesn't matter. The show goes on. Isn't it, Alan? Often we say, maybe we should have done this. Maybe that should have happened. Let it be. Somebody's doing it. Just say thank you and clap and enjoy, instead of always looking for faults, always looking for betterment. That's what I felt, Ammar, definitely this year. I just sat back and filmed and just enjoyed the show. Good. And it started so beautifully with that girl who danced. I went up to her, by the way, and I said, you dance so beautifully. Where are you based? She said, I thought she'd come from London. She said, Sunderland. I said, when I was a boy of 7 and on a rickshaw, the pedal rickshaw of the olden days, my sister and I used to go. I was the escort. I was 7, very powerful. She was 5. And she was, for 2 hours a week, she would learn dancing. And I'm sitting there but you know, that sound and that music and the boredom made me start to like classical music. And I told her, I said, "You're like my sister, my little," I mean, she's half my age, you know. But she was touched that I reminded her
I
of
think
her.
she was a lot younger than half your age. To be honest. I think, come on, Doc.
You
That was
know,
like,
Oh no,
like
one third.
embellishment.
One
Like
was just-
embellishment.
I was
of,
just thinking that was
she was
an
18. She was 18.
Really?
Yeah.
So she's 1/5 my age then.
All right, sorry, anyway.
I was just thinking that was an interesting story from the dog. Whether you were hiding the fact you asked her for a telephone number.
No, come on, Alan. I can get
Well, anyway,
up like that, but never mind.
It is wonderful. It is wonderful.
No, it is good to make a personal contact and praise them.
It's important. Good.
Yeah.
And you're right. You know, and I mentioned this, right? It was wonderful, and I publicly appreciate, as I've just recognized and appreciate what you've done. You know, the Dan, the Martha, the Bailey, the Amit, and all of that type of thing, right? They're done, and naturally it's dead easy for me to go, oh, well, we could have done this and we should have done that. And I didn't know, and all of that.
Joy.
In essence, the joy for me was being able to spectate, although it was very sad that I wasn't there. I was able to spectate and participate through the electronic media, social media, right? So I could see the comments, I could see the interaction, the engagement, and the amount of people who said, you know, quote unquote, best event I have ever been to. You know, and similar type of feedback, and the fact that the engagement continued, and all of that was such a big deal. You know, it was.
I think I've only got one detraction from that.
Sorry,
right? I've only got one detraction from that, and I don't want to be too negative. But you know,
that's unusual, isn't it?
Come on, Alan, be yourself, be negative, please.
I was watching, just pause that for about 2 seconds, because I was actually, as part of my illness, watching the Muppets movie, and there's a couple of characters that are on there.
I haven't got a clue.
Who you anyway. I think we should and could reenact. Well, you guys could very easily. In fact, I regularly get confused between
Waldorf and what's he called?
Statler.
Yes.
Anyway,
Waldorf and Statler.
Come on then, Mr. Positive.
Right. Well, so Mr. Positive, I want detraction. You know, in your honorary army rank, so all your 101 gang were in the top corner with all their dress uniforms on. Remember? Oh, you might not have noticed that, but you know the gang from.
I did. Yes. No. Shoot.
So, without exception, Pat sat on everyone's knee. Pat being my wife, and got a kiss off everybody. I just felt, you know,
he felt that proud. He wanted to sit on the knees and get a kiss.
And I never got a kiss all night.
I'm sorry about that.
On a negative perspective, there wasn't an army officer in that room that didn't kiss my wife. So I think just at your next sort of review of the regiment, you might just want to mention that.
Good. Is that like should I break into song here and start? We'll meet again. Anyway, well done, and you know, we love Pat. You know, and I love the fact that you guys come along, get involved. Doc's up there dancing and all of that. It was good fun. It was good fun. And you know, the couple of good calls from my part. I think relatively, you know, I wish I could have said I planned this year months in advance, but having Tommy there, I think, was a big deal. He was very funny.
Do you know his joke when he said, what does SME stand for? Small to medium ethnics. And he was looking at Amit Bhanda. It was so funny.
Yeah, that was quick.
But he's very he doesn't miss a little trick.
He is so funny. so funny. In fact, I have subsequently had a few people reach out saying, I think we'd like him to do our awards, or I think we'd like him to
Right,
do yours and things like that, which was all about, this. So,
Well, you mentioned it before, but he was particularly good the way he did things and what you expose through ABC of breaking down barriers. He was comfortable with jokes that maybe some other people wouldn't get away with,
Yes,
but were across the whole spectrum of the attendees.
yes.
oh, I think there's no question about that. There is no question that he was able to say a lot of the things that people think.
But they're not say because of political.
They're not saying, oh, because it's like someone will be offended
Oh,
somewhere.
he doesn't care.
But that's part of that evening celebration,
yes.
right? Is that the most fun place and space is where you can have a bit of fun with yourself and allow for someone else to have a little bit of fun as well, right? As in, it was just anyway. He was funny. He was
Yes.
very funny.
That's what he was meant to be anymore.
Yeah, and that's so that was a huge help. Because the over reliance on me and Sandeep and whatever else.
But also, you and Sandeep are a bit incestuous. We know all your jokes, but those who are coming from outside, there'll be a lot of in jokes they might miss out on. But with him, everyone's the same.
I was going to say,
everyone, no one's special for me.
If the two of you sort of mention the fact my negativity, Ammar's not funny.
Very funny. I think it's very, very funny. Do you not get his jokes like?
No.
Is he too educated for you like?
No, I don't like.
And that's the thing, because I am really, really, really funny. Not that I'm sort of
like you're really funny, like.
I'm very funny, like. You mean funny, haha, or funny?
I'll do anything for a bag of tuna.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, bringing that back to business again, which is the shrinkage scenario. I listened to somebody the other day talking about packets of crisps.
Okay. I'm glad you qualified. I'm glad you qualified that, and it wasn't an age thing.
No.
The shrinkage scenario.
But I'm just trying to bring it back to business a little bit, where they were suggesting at one time you got a bag of crisps, and now you might get a crisp in a bag. So another way of the cost of living crisis, where the businesses and the big businesses are actually working through the shrinkage of the product as well as the price. I don't know.
There was an article both in the Sunday Times and the Economist that went into further detail of that. And for example, the Jaffa cakes, you now get 11 in a pack rather than 14. The Quality Street and the tubs of all of those, you used to get 750 grams. Now it's 450 grams. So what they've done is they've simply maintained the price of the product whilst reducing the quantity, and consequently, people just don't realize. But I reckon
maybe then the amount of diabetes will go down in the country.
Well, I don't think.
I mean, it's not such a big deal, It isn't,
But all that's going to happen, people are just going to eat more, buy more, aren't they? As opposed to that. I think from going back to where we started around the health and the wealth of individuals. Historically, Doc, from an Asian and ethnic perspective, the more portly you were, the more wealthier you were perceived to be, right?
Hindi they say, khate pite ghar ke hain. I'm from a house where you can eat well.
Yeah, and certainly in the Middle East, the well-to-do, very well-to-do, were very well-to-do around the midriff as well. Is what they were well-to-do. So there is those considerations. I think there's no question about the impact of sugar on all of our lives and livelihoods. And consequently, whether you have one of those circuit mirrors that Alan might have mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, do you not have a mirror? And it would be funny if they had one of those skinny type mirrors, wouldn't they?
Yes, it makes you look.
They could go, yes, I have.
Yeah.
It makes me look smaller.
Yeah.
Maybe the question should be, do you not need to go to Specsavers as opposed to, do you not have a mirror?
We mentioned jokes. Doc, I'm sure you said, do you have a mirror? And you went, oh, you do you?
Do you?
That's the wide-mouthed frog joke, which the doc will tell you one day. The wide-mouthed frog eater.
Yes. Wonderful. Yes.
No.
Anyway, on that note, so coming back to, we've set the date for the 19th of October 2023.
Right.
This is what we have done. And I think we need to get ahead of the curve.
Yes.
Now,
absolutely.
recognizing how many people had such an incredible time. The food they thoroughly enjoyed. How was the food, by the way?
Very, very good.
Yes.
Everyone, even the ones, one fellow says better than my wife's cooking.
Actually,
I bet you she wasn't there though.
No, she wasn't there. And he's
Oh,
like,
right, okay.
but in Lahore, they really love their food, Lahore is famous for food court, as you might know. So he said,
Yes.
oh, it's even better than my wife's cooking. So
I
the
would just
was-
take
was
that
good.
one step further, Ammar. The young people who were serving the food were particularly good. I'm not going to use the word respectful. They were just friendly, and
That's
if they were asked for, Nihar came in late because she had to take Bahal home, so it wasn't a problem to try and get them a little bit extra because they were late for a meal or something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you do with the hotel, but I just thought they were particularly good on our table, and I'm sure that was replicated across. And whether whether you write to the hotel or the staff, I know we pay for the function, but it's always nice. I didn't meet one member of staff, either at the bar or otherwise, who didn't try to be nice to the customer and
may I add, because I do Facebook Live, because it's easy to do, it reaches far and wide, you don't have to edit, that the reception of the Wi-Fi was brilliant, absolutely super, better than my homes, It was really free.
Well, how many houses have you got, like?
No, it's better than the home I live in. I'm not in an old people's home. This is my home, my actual house, No, the reception and the Wi-Fi was brilliant, absolutely superb, really good.
It's just a thought for whether we send a letter from ABC to say, yeah, I accept we're paying for it, but sometimes you pay for things and don't get the service.
Mm-hmm. No, it was brilliant. And this year I didn't get fined for my parking because I entered my number into the another bonus,
Everyone's
wonderful. Yeah, so
you don't need to tell the doc. You don't need to tell the doc twice.
We have a curry club on the last Thursday in November. So please put that in your diaries, and we're going to use it as a bit of a celebratory event to recognise the finalists and previous stakeholders, the winners, and things like that. Is what we intend to do. So,
any venue you fixed? Have you?
The business clinic in Newcastle,
right, opposite the bedding store.
Yes.
Yeah. It's an excellent venue.
Right. Yeah. It's good. It's really properly made. It's like a theater, and it's brilliant.
Yes.
Great. Well.
Yeah. So looking forward to that, and thank you, Doc and Alan, once again for your
and Winston
incredible support.
And Winston, say goodbye.
Sausages.
It's Red Hot Radio.
Yay!
Spice FM 98.5.
The social media giant Twitter has a new owner. Billionaire Elon Musk is now in charge of the firm and has already ousted its top 3 executives. There's set to be a pre-Christmas election in Northern Ireland after the midnight deadline to restore devolved government passed without a deal. Northern Ireland Secretary Chris Heaton-Harris is expected to call the poll later today.
Now,
Production of the first
Well,
coins of the king.
I was going to say most politicians make a mess of talking when they think they're off camera. But Ammar, for your diary, we do need everybody together for a debrief.
Yeah, I spoke to the team just before.
Good. So
Only because I'd equally want to get something out. So I'd like to get like thank you cards, but I also want to get the save the date type of, don't wait, save the date. Like as in, don't wait,
Yeah.
save the date.
I didn't doubt you.
Get it
I
early.
didn't doubt you'd have a slogan, right? I didn't doubt it.
Don't wait, save the date.
But it just needs to be learned every time, and this time we learned yet again of things to make it
Yeah, I
better.
think Martha's still recording this for some.
That's
reason.
fine. Just don't forget about it.
Oh no, I think we need to come and have some lassi or some lassie and
Lassie.
the wonder dog.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
We'll
some
cover.
lassie,
We'll cover Winston's ears, right?
yeah.
That's
Or
his
Pat's.
hero, Lassie.
Pat doesn't like
Pat,
swearing.
you can come in now.
Yeah.
Oh look, Pat's
Hello,
just come in.
Pat.
Hello.
Well, you're not on the radio now.
You all right, everybody?
Well, he's not bad. He's on antibiotics now.
Oh, you've got some more.
Shh,
Yeah.
don't say that.
Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
I was just explaining. We've been talking about ABC, and the only disappointment was how you sat on every army officer's knee and give him a kiss.
I wasn't disappointed, was it? That was the option.